So in the first lecture, I talked a little bit about the issue of academic integrity at a U.S. university and why it is important. In addition, I also talked about some of the values, beliefs, and expectations that professors might have about academic integrity on the part of students so that you can understand their perspectives on the issue. Finally, I talked about what are some different types of academic dishonesty, cheating, and plagiarism, for example, and what some possible consequences for not meeting professors' expectations might be. In this second lecture, I want to delve a bit deeper into the issue of plagiarism, since many multilingual speakers of English from diverse cultural and linguistic backgrounds find this issue to be most difficult to contend with. Plagiarism is using someone else's work without giving him or her credit. That includes text, ideas, images, videos, and audio, graphics, data, anything that is the intellectual or creative work of another person, another student, a professor, or another person in your field of study. In the academic world, you must follow these rules. When you use the exact words of someone else, you must use quotation marks and provide a citation. A citation means that you state that this is another person's work. For example, Bill Smith said in the beginning of a sentence with a quotation, and/or a citation at the end in parentheses, Smith, 1992, page 57. How you do that will depend on your specific discipline and its conventions. Also, when you put the information into your own words, that is, you use someone else's ideas, not their exact words, you use your own words to express accurately what the other person's idea is, you must provide a citation as well in the same manner. I wanted to show you one example of a student that I once had in a freshman composition course. Now, this was a multilingual speaker of English who committed plagiarism in my class. On the left, you see the student's first draft of her essay about advertisements in the US media. On the right, you see the original from a textbook. The textbook was quoting Ian Chambers' article, Popular Culture from the Metropolitan Experience, a magazine. As you can see, comparing and contrasting the original with the student's text that I circled here, you see it's very, very close, although the student did make some changes. But what really tipped me off that this was a copied text in the student's essay was not only that it didn't sound like the student, it sounded like some scholar, but also, even more importantly, that if you read the text, it doesn't quite fit with the rest of the essay that's not circled. In fact, the student kind of misinterprets the original text in some way and actually formulates a somewhat faulty conclusion by the end of that paragraph. Now, the student did this several times throughout the essay, and you can see at the top of her draft, I wrote, "We need to set up a time to talk about this paper in order to help you improve. See me after class." But there are many different types of plagiarism. And here, the Turnitin.com white paper. Turnitin.com is a software program that you can use through CourseSite many times or directly online that can help you check to see whether you are using other people's words and ideas appropriately. It actually checks your paper for you and gives you a percentage of words and ideas that may be borrowed from somewhere else. But anyway, this is from a white paper called The Plagiarism Spectrum, published by Turnitin.com. And they identify actually 10 different types of plagiarism, some of which I've already talked about. I only include, I guess, 8 of them here. There's the clone, where you submit another person's work whole scale, word for word as your own. Central C, you use portions of a single source without giving credit, just one or two sentences scattered throughout your paper. Find and replace. You use the words and ideas of another person, but you change a few words in the original or a citation, and it's still too close to the original. Recycle. This is called self-plagiarism that I mentioned before. You use your previous work heavily without citation or reference. Mashup. You include several people's words and ideas without citing them, often without even giving your own opinion. It's sort of a mashup, meaning a mix together of many people's ideas and words. This is also what Rebecca Moore Howard calls patch writing. You're patching together other people's words and ideas without including your own and without citation. Retweet. You use your own words and citation, but your paraphrase is still too close to the original, and you do not use quotations. 404 error. You include citations to non-existent or inaccurate information about sources. That is, you misrepresent the words and ideas of other people. This might also include possibly padding your bibliography even. That is, you include a bunch of sources in your citation that you never even read, but you just want to look like you're really smart and really scholarly. Aggregator. You include proper citation, but the paper contains almost no original work. That is, you just say, quote, 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 without, again, including your words or interpretations or opinions. So now let's take a look at a few examples and consider whether each of the examples is plagiarism or not plagiarism, or appropriate borrowing of other people's words and ideas. Now, keep in mind that, again, as I stated before, it can depend on the context, that is, the type of text it is, the type of discipline you're in, or the type of assignment that you are completing. So it's always really, really important to talk to your professor if you have any questions or concern, or go to the Writing Center for extra help. What I'd like you to do is to read this next text where you'll see the original and 4 different sentences that attempt to use the words and or ideas of the original. Consider whether it is plagiarism or appropriate use of others' words and ideas with proper citation or not, and most importantly, why you think so. You might want to stop this video, look at the examples, consider the examples and make a decision, and then we'll go over the possible answers. Good luck. So how did you do? Were these difficult for you? Some of them may be a little bit difficult, but if you consider some of the topics and issues that we talked about, we can sort of think through what the answers are, whether they're plagiarism or not, and why. So let's take a look at sentence number 1. In sentence number 1, we see that the exact words are used from the original. LCDs enable employers to reduce many of the risk factors that cause complaints. This is exactly taken from the original first sentence, except the only difference is that the person took out the word visual for visual complaint. There's no statement at the beginning as a reporting phrase. The authors state that, quote, blah, blah, blah. And when you're quoting, in most disciplines, it's really important to put the page number where you got the original quotation so that another reader reading your work can go back to the original and check if they're going to check your sources or if they're going to write about the same topic and want to use that source. In sentence number 2, we see that this person is paraphrasing the original author's ideas, not quoting the exact words. For example, in the original source, it uses the phrase "in workplaces," while the paraphrase sentence says "in the workplace." We have, in the original, have become increasingly popular, and in the paraphrase, it's are very popular. In this sense, there's different word forms, a rearrangement of the grammar of the sentence, and some changes in actual vocabulary. One might argue that there's some missing information here or missing meaning, but in general, it's a fairly good paraphrase. Is this plagiarism like the first example? Well, I would argue yes, it is. While the paraphrase is fairly well stated, there again is no reporting phrase to indicate that this is someone else's idea. So even with a paraphrase, not solely the exact words, but if the idea is the same, then you still need to indicate either at the beginning of the sentence with a reporting phrase that this is not your idea, and or at the end in a parenthetical citation like Bill Smith, page 52, 1997, or what have you, depending on the conventions of your field of study. So in this case, both 1 and 2 for me are two different types of plagiarism because it involves, in the first case, using the exact words of another individual, another source, without quoting and without citation. And in the second case, it involves using just the idea without proper attribution or citation. The third example, we do get some proper attribution of the original source or citation. We have the phrase, according to Minozzi et al. Et al means and everybody else. 2001. Et al. In some disciplines is used when there are more than 3 authors. You don't want to write out all the authors because it would make the sentence too long. If an individual wants to know who these exact authors are, they can always go to your bibliography under Minozzi, 2001, and they can see, if you are accurate, they can see all the authors' names and then go find that article on their own from the library or online. In any case, this reporting phrase, according to Minozzi et al. 2001, allows us to know that this is not your ideas, but this is an idea, and quotations that will follow are somebody else's. The problem, however, with this sentence is that while it starts off by paraphrasing well, with one way that LCDs can reduce risk factors, the rest of the sentence is way too close to the original. In fact, luminance of LCDs is in quotes, which is great, but the rest of the sentence is an exact copy of the original. So I would encourage this writer to either use quotations around all of the exactly quoted material, or probably better would be to just quote luminance of LCDs and then paraphrase in the author's own words the rest of the sentence, because the rest of the sentence is not particularly original or creative or beautiful, but it's the idea of the rest of the sentence that's important, and the phrase luminance of LCDs might be quotable, if you will, which we'll talk about. Sentence number 4 is perhaps the best example of appropriate use of other people's words and ideas. Again, we have the reporting phrase in the beginning, according to Minozzi et al. 2001, and then we have a paraphrase, no quotation, but a paraphrase that is fairly different from the original. So it shows that the writer of this paraphrase is processing and understands the original source and can put it in his or her own words, significantly different from the original. In this sense, although it could be even more different from the original by rearranging different parts of the grammar of the original sentence, I think it's fairly good in terms of avoiding plagiarism. And then at the end is a page number, page 82. Now, depending on your discipline, depending on how closely the paraphrase is to the original, some disciplines will ask you to put a page number for quotations, certainly, but also possibly for paraphrases. In this sense, then, though, I would always ask your professor or talk to the writing center about whether to put a page number and how, because it can be discipline specific. One final thing that I want to mention to you in this second lecture has to do with plagiarism and note-taking. That is, how you take notes while you read or listen to a lecture is incredibly important. If you are copying in your notes exactly what people are saying in a lecture or what you are reading word for word, then you're not actively understanding and acting upon that information. Rather, if you first attempt to understand and then put in your own words what you understand from the reading or the lecture in an organized fashion, then you're less likely to plagiarize. Never write by copying from the original text. Always write from your notes based on that original text. If there is a quotable sentence or a quotable phrase or a quotable word that you say, this is very original and this is very poetic or creative or concise, as I'll talk about in a later lecture, this is considered quotable, and you should put it with quotes in your notes and a page number and the original source bibliographic information. That way, when you go to write your paper, if you're writing from your notes, you know, these are not my words. This is not my idea. And in this way, you can copy from your notes, ensuring that you make very clear in your writing when you are talking about your ideas and when you are using other people's words and ideas.